Let us look at the Review and the View tab. Review has some proofing and accessibility features. For example, if I have written something, let's say my finding, and I want to search for synonyms, I can simply click on the thesaurus and it gives me synonyms on the right side. I can also see antonyms if we scroll down. Workbook Statistics simply tells you a little bit of detail about the workbook that you're working on. So the number of sheets, cells with data, tables, formulas, and external connections. Remember, we have external connections because we have used Power Query. Spelling checks the spelling, simple enough. For example, if I have a misspelling, it gives me suggestions that it feels will be a fix for the mistake that we have made. Accessibility is something most of you will not require to use, but accessibility basically helps you understand whether there is any obvious inspection result which might create problems for certain types of users. For example, it says that there are some shapes on my workbook in sheet number 2 which do not have an alternative text, which means that if somebody is opening this Excel file on a system or on a device which cannot show shapes, there should ideally be an alternative text. So how do we do that? Right click, format shape, and let's see. So I can also go to size and properties and text box. Hold on, I'm not able to find it. Just give me a moment. Let me do that once again. So we have this, right click, and let's go to size and properties. Let's see where the alternative text is. I still can't find it. It's very, very, very strange. That's okay, because there are so many options. Sometimes the correct option is hidden. Okay, let's go to search and see if we can find the alternative text. Oh, we can't do that here as well. Let me see where we would be able to find it. So we're looking at rectangle number 5 in sheet number 2, and okay, this is the one, edit alternative text. So we can simply say whatever we want. Let's say hello world, and let's also make it decorative. Now let's see what happens. Do you see that error has gone away in the inspection results? Similarly, there is a warning that we have used the default sheet names, which means that Excel is prompting that we should ideally give a name of our choice and not use the default sheet names. Then we also have some text which is hard to read. So if you notice, because of the way we have used the colors, it is thinking that this might be hard to read for the user. Similarly here as well. But the moment I go and change it to something else, right, you notice that inspection result is not showing that anymore. These are very smart features. Having worked on Excel for over a decade and a half, I can tell you that right now you must not be able to see the value in these small things. But earlier when we were working on client projects, it used to be a big challenge because, as an analyst or as a consultant, we would do something. But later on, the client might face some issues because of the way we created our file. Accessibility is something which most of you would not be required to use, but as you can see, it is definitely handy, especially before you're sending out the file to somebody else. Next, we have Smart Lookup. Simple enough. We can write something, let's say Germany, and I can click on Smart Lookup to quickly generate some details about the word that I've written. Right? So I have some web results here. Let's say I click on Show More. The idea here is that you can simply see the result, copy paste, come back, put it on Excel without having to open a browser and search for it again and again. We can even search for pictures like this. So let's say this picture, copy it, come back and paste it. Saves you so much time. Then we have translate. Again, Very straightforward. If I say hello, how are you doing? What will it do? When I click on translate, let me remove the image as well. It will simply detect that my language is English and it will convert it into any language I want. If I want German, I can simply, let me just make sure to select the text. Perfect. So I get the text in German. So we don't basically need Google Translate anymore because all of this can happen directly within Excel. Obviously, the same thing works in PowerPoint and Outlook and Word as well. Then we have some options for adding comments. Very simple. Click on add new comment and you can add a comment like this. You can also add notes, which is like this. Now let's come to the protection group. This can be very important. Now sometimes you have some data. Let's say we have written name and the ID and the target. Okay. And the name is A, B, and C. The ID is 1, 2, and 3, and the target is 10, 30, and 50. Now, we want the users to be able to change their target, which I'm going to color green, but we don't want them to be able to change the name or the identification, obviously, which means that when the manager is assigning the target for an employee, they should not be able to change the employee's name or the identification. How do we do this? It requires a few steps. Let's see what we do. I will first select the entire sheet, right click and format cells. Now in protection, we can unlock the entire worksheet. Now we select column D, or rather column C and column B. In column C and column B, we want to do the same thing, format cells, but we want to lock it. And let me also color it red. Now see what's going to happen. What we are doing is to say that we want to keep column D accessible and editable to the user, but they should not be able to change column B and column C. When we click on review, we can protect the sheet. We can put a password if we want to, but for now I'm going to leave it blank. And when I click OK, the Excel doesn't look any different, does it? If you notice, I can change everything except column B and column C. It gives me an error. It tells me that I'm not allowed to change column B and column C. That is what protection of a sheet is used for. You can even protect a workbook, which will protect the workbook structure. So let me put a password. Let's say PASS. What does this mean? When I try to add a sheet, you notice it doesn't allow me. Again, I can't insert, delete, rename, move or copy, hide, unhide, even change the color for that matter. So this is a very nice way of protecting the workbook structure. So if you have shared with somebody the workbook, they will not be able to make any modifications to it. Allow edit ranges we can leave for now. This is typically used when you're sharing a file with multiple people. We also have an option to draw something. So remember in draw, I told you that you can draw something, and then in the review tab, we can hide the ink that we have like this. Excellent. Let's come to the view tab. We have already covered this in normal page break preview on the page layout, which was there in the bottom right corner. We also have three options to show the grid line heading or the formula bar. So we can hide and unhide these very simply. Do remember you cannot hide the sheet tab and the scroll bar. Only the grid line heading and the formula bar can be hidden. You have some zoom options. You have a zoom to selection option. For example, if you have some data like this, you can click on zoom to selection like this. Let's look at how new window works. And I want to create a new workbook for this. I have 1, 2, and 3. and I have another sheet. The workbook name is called Book 3. So when I click on New Window, it creates a second copy of book number 3. So I can write equal to sum, press Alt Tab, and Alt Tab will allow me to go to sheet number 1 on the other instance of the workbook like this. Let me do that once again. As you can see, we have two copies of the same workbook, 1 and 2. On the second one, we will write equal to sum, and on the first one, we will select sheet 1 and select the data. So this is a little better than having to manually click on a different sheet. But you still have to press Alt Tab, right? And we want to avoid that. What do? You press Windows Tab, okay? So you press the Windows key and the Tab key. This will show you all the windows like this. So we have two instances of the same Excel file. On one of these, right click and snap left. And then on the right side, you can see the other instance. I hope you're able to see where we are headed with this. On one side, I can see my input, and on the other side, we can see the formula. So I can write sum and select my data. And it's so much simpler because I can view two different sheets of the same Excel workbook at the same time. And once you're done, simply close either of the instances of the workbook and it combines back into a single workbook. Freeze panes is used when you have a large data set. And right now, if you notice, when I scroll down, the heading is not visible. But if I select B2, which I'm going to color, and I click on View and Freeze Pane, you would notice that when I scroll to the right or below, the first column and the first row will always be visible like this. Some of these options I'm skipping. If you want to, you can yourself try to work on them, but these are not very important. Switch windows allows you to work with multiple workbooks and switch between different workbooks very easily. Macros, of course, is a part of Visual Basic, which we will not be covering right now. Wonderful. So in the next lecture, everyone, we have the Developer tab, which remember is something we had enabled in the file options. And I will show you what is the capability that a VBA code or a macro will allow you, which otherwise would not be possible on Excel.